Board members, members of the public, thank you. I apologize for that, but appreciative of the accommodation. Let's go ahead if we are ready. We are on agenda item 3. This is our Finance Committee report, and we need Chair Davis. Vice Chair Kelly, do you want to start? No worries. Oh, maybe I'll take that one. Okay. Vice Chair Kelly, if you're willing to chair for a minute, we'll turn time over to you.
All right, we're agenda item 3.3, R277726 statewide online education program.
Chair.
This was in
Chair.
our
Chair Kelly.
Yeah.
I believe we want to do 3.2.
Let me see.
We need to get to R277-477.
Oh, okay. And the motion was there.
Is that
Got it.
that what
Yeah.
you have?
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
let's do that.
All right, my bad. It was 3.2, not 3.3. So 3.2 R277477 distribution of funds from the trust land distribution account and administration of school land trust program. And the motion for the board was that the board continue and approve R277477 distribution of funds from the trust distribution account and administration of the school land trust program draft 1 on second and final reading.
Thank you. So the motion that came out of committee and to the board is that the board continue and approve R277-477 distribution of funds from the trust distribution account and administration of the school land trust program draft 1 on second and final reading. Seeing no lights, let's go ahead and vote.
I would be able to talk at the end of the day if I keep going. But
That passes unanimously with Member Bogus still absent, so we'll continue from here. It looks like there's an arm wrestle between chair and vice chair. Who's
Chair Davis is in charge.
Chair Davis wins the arm wrestle, so over to you, Chair Davis.
I was saying Vice Chair Kelly was doing a fabulous job, and I'd love to see that continue, but well, maybe another day, he said. Okay, I'm trying to make sure I know where we are. So
Yeah,
we are.
apologies. We just did 3.2.
Okay, so all of the items that are moved to May, I'm just going to say move to May, and then we will discuss them for the May 22nd report out, which will be following this. So 3.3 is moved to May 22nd. Item 3.4, request for the use of Utah State Board of Education discretionary funds for development of playground equipment. The motion for the board is that the board approves the use of $120,000 of federal mineral lease funding for this project, contingent upon presentation of a formal legal opinion at the June board meeting. And so I think we are ready for that opinion.
I'm not sure. We're putting Laura on the spot here, and I'm not sure if what the communication has been here. Laura, let's get you on a microphone.
Quite frankly,
I'm here for you.
well, then I'll let you.
No.
No, the conclusion that I reached in reviewing that is that the proposal is something that could be done, but it's going to require a robust research proposal to go with it because you're at significant risk of those funds being clawed back if they would audit and determine that it was not sufficient or it was pretextual. For example, calling something research doesn't make it research, so it has to be a legitimate research project involving the purchase of that equipment, regardless of any benefit that the school may actually incur from it because of the way that it's structured.
Member Hall.
has his light on.
After talking to Laura, we just was hoping that we can move to pass this through today on a contingency that we would make sure that before a check was written that we would have a robust plan put together, working with some folks, hopefully within the agency too as well, to be able to accomplish that. So we have those things in place, but to be able to present a more robust plan, that's something that we would need to do. So still move forward in this direction and talk about this a little bit, but hopefully to be able to pass it with, contingent upon a robust research plan put together before we actually cut the check.
Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. And I do appreciate the work that's been done on this. All of you know, special ed is my thing, and I have a real passion for students and the needs that they have. My concern with this proposal is that, and the money, like we've talked about, is specifically for research. I've done a lot of looking, and there is so much research already done on the benefits of all ability playground equipment. And so for me, I'm going to have to be a no on this because I don't believe that this is our lane. Yes, we could, create a research project, go through IRB and go through the whole process just to make sure that we can support this. But local districts have funds and should be paying for this. Local districts often will go through and look at what the needs are at their local schools. And I know it is expensive. I know local districts and schools have raised money. Even when I was a principal myself, I worked with my PTA to raise money for the same thing. So I do think it's important to have all ability playground equipment, but I do not think it's the role of our board. And what we do for one, we need to be able to do for all. And I'm really worried about the precedents that we're trying to set where this really is not our lane or our role to do that. So just wanted to say that, yes, I support the use of all ability playground equipment, but I do not think that that's our role as a state board to use these funds for that reason. Thanks.
Member Lear.
Thank you. And somewhat similar to Vice Chair Bollinger, I absolutely support children. I have three little grandchildren who love these playgrounds. I am concerned. I'm of the mind of President Reagan, trust but verify. So if I see that there is a robust plan for this, then I might be supportive, but I'm not inclined to say, let's approve it and then look at the research. I'd like to see the information up front before I could vote for this. Not inclined to say, we'll wait for that because it sometimes doesn't prove as strong as we want it to be. Thanks.
Member Earl.
Thank you. So over the past month, I've taken a little bit of time to call districts and call their special ed, the individual over special education or over facilities, because I wanted to find out this. We're hearing anybody could do it. It's, this idea that they've got the money, let them put this forward. That's just not what's happening. That may be the truth. Yeah, they could prioritize this, but that's not what's happening. And I would say a number of districts do have on their schedules to take, as they're upgrading their playground equipment, they're incorporating pieces in. I do feel like this is the exact thing that we would use this money for. We're ending the year in July with significant funding in this particular, the federal mineral lease area. We've gone a whole year. And I think we've had maybe one project. It's meant to be innovative. It's meant to be something that benefits the students across the state. Yeah, we're not going to be able to provide it for all students, but we will be able to provide. The research is out there, but it's still not happening. This could lead into asking for, especially as we're doing special education, I think there's other asks for special education. This would, I see this as a piece or a part of that to help with our students. And you never know when a student's going to come that's going to need specialized equipment or a way to access the playground without all the structure. And we shouldn't wait till they come and then say, well, let's earn money, because that takes 2-3 years down the road, and that student often has moved on to the next school. So I do think I would encourage us to take advantage of ULEAD, who is our education research arm within the education realm, and have them assist with this and to move this forward. So thank you.
Member Hall.
Oh, sorry. I just want to say, I think this is a great opportunity for us to be able to use this FML funds. Some of the research has already been done at the school. She increased recess by 15 minutes this last year and tracked all the data for that. And it's pretty phenomenal, the results that came out. The two things that stand out to me the most is that she had over 100 less behavioral incidents over the year. And they went from being 36th in the district in reading to 6th. Now, I don't know if you can, attribute all of it to that, but I think it definitely played a major role in those stats and in those things that happened in that school. So this is homegrown research, which I think is awesome. Like, it meant so much more for me to hear that from a homegrown school than it did to read a big research paper on seeing, the increase in the effects and the impact on recess. So now we have an opportunity to be able to come along with this and see how all abilities playgrounds can impact the school too as well, locally, right? Homegrown research. And so I think having the opportunity to be able to do that, we talk about inclusion. There's no better place than on the playground to be able to see inclusion with all students of every color, of every health background, all those different things coming together, play together, see what that research looks like in increasing student outcomes. So I think we have a tremendous opportunity because it'll be homegrown data that we gather here, and it will allow us as a state board to be able to give guidance to the state as they get ready to build new buildings or maybe upgrade their playground. Maybe this is the direction that they want to go to as well. So I hope that as a board we can see the value in that, the value add, as Scott would say, along the way, and maybe take advantage of this opportunity. I wanted to give Scott an opportunity to be able to speak to it as well, if you would, Scott. Just kind of maybe share your thoughts and opinions on what you think about this FML grant.
Scott, go ahead.
Deputy Superintendent of Operations Scott Jones. So I appreciate the opportunity to do this. My first question, though, or concern is if whoever's driving could pull up the actual research doc or the actual proposal. This process is a good learning experience for staff, because should there ever be proposals for research, development, or experimentation, this did appear to us to be maybe not as robust as it should be. I don't disagree with the attorney's opinion of it, that there is risk there. I don't think, she can speak for herself, but she's not saying don't do it. But there's risk here. I see that as well. But the other piece to this too is that as you look through this, they do reference the other research that has been done, and I think we would be remiss if we didn't also consider, because as staff, we're not here to unduly influence you or take sides or anything like that, but to duly inform you that if your concern is with research too, then please consider experimentation. That this would allow the opportunity for. And yes, it's isolated to one particular school, but to experience and experiment on that to support or substantiate that prior research was accurate or done, or that by way of experimentation that, we found some other benefits, but there also could be some drawbacks or considerations that could be that could be shared from your level in a general sense, not to specify or to say you shall do this or you shall use this or this is the jungle gym that you shall build going forward. That is really from the training that we received on federal mineral lease, is that you as the board have $1 million in that fund to experiment with, to try to do those types of things too. And I do understand the concern about precedents and those things too. I see that as well, but we can put notice on, hey, we're not going to buy playground equipment for you unless it's in the interest of researching and developing something, and it could be jointly done with ULEAD, because that was also going back to my experience when we were first standing up ULEAD. There was a lot of discussion about ULEAD using FML money to do research and development to see best practices and those types of things too. So I think this might go into there. If it helps, I would recommend taking the risk, right? And then you can blame me if an audit comes out, okay? So it's $120,000. I don't want to spend money just to spend money, but it is there for you as the board at your discretion to provide to the. So if not this, then what, right? Then do it. Just please consider that. Not, obviously staff would always support what the direction of the board is. We value your opinions. You're our elected officials. You're our leaders. And, we're here to try to help you to make an informed decision on what you want to do and the way ahead, how you want to go. So.
Okay. I've got Member Davis.
Yeah, I also weighed quite heavily the risks because we don't want our money to be clawed back once we've spent it. That's concerning. The piece that has pushed me a step into this direction is that as a parent, we as just parents, led by one amazing parent with a child in a wheelchair, did this work to try to get this playground equipment on our playground, and it was really hard. And I'm hoping, based on the research plans that we've seen so far, and I think it would be wise for ULEAD to help. And I don't know if that requires another motion or what to help with some of these research procedures, but I'm hoping that the difference with this research will be sort of a step-by-step. Here's where we started. Here's how we went through the process. Here are some things that worked and didn't work. And that could be ultimately, at the minimum, the process shared with other schools who are building new schools, or maybe even used someday as a policy lever or a funding lever so that some funding is provided when a new school is built to automatically include some of this playground equipment for all abilities playgrounds to exist in our new schools. That's kind of what pushed me into that space. I'm assuming that the Attorney General's, this is based on the opinion, the motion's based on the opinion, we have the opinion now, so we need to decide. I'm assuming that the research proposal was read and our Assistant Attorney Generals felt it may not be robust enough and will need some additional work. And I am assuming that is going to happen, that maybe we need to add that into this motion and amend it to say contingent upon, instead of a formal legal opinion at the June board meeting, contingent upon a formal legal opinion on the robustness of the plan. And if the plan is there, we move forward. I don't think it needs to come back to the board, but I feel like if there's an okay nod from our legal opinion, then it should move forward. So I'm going to amend this to say contingent upon contingent upon the legal opinion of our Assistant Attorney Generals approving the robustness of the research. So it would take out presentation of a formal legal opinion at the June board meeting and replace it with maybe contingent upon a formal legal opinion of our Assistant Attorney Generals approval of the robustness of the plan. Is that an appropriate piece to add to the motion or no? I see some shaking head by Deputy Jones, so maybe I cannot add that as an amendment.
Let's
Chair.
get Laura on here. She's got to, go ahead.
I was going to say, I can certainly tell you whether or not I believe that it's sufficiently robust, but I don't have the special credentials it would take to tell you whether or not it's legitimate. I can certainly get with whoever I need to and explain the areas that I saw that were weak, but I don't think that I can say with any legal certainty that, yes, the people that are going to review this will absolutely accept it or not. So that's a little outside of our
Might
brief
I
here.
ask a question directly through the chair?
Yeah, we have a weird motion thing happen. Not the motion is weird,
Yeah,
but we're kind of.
I may need
but-
to withdraw, and I don't think that had a second. So my question is, who would be the appropriate specialized body? Would that be ULEAD because they're hired directly for data and research? Or would that be the superintendent? Chair, might we get someone to answer that question? Do we have an expert of that nature that we could replace instead of the Assistant Attorney General? What's that?
We're getting some wheels
I
turning.
don't know. I think maybe, well, ULEAD's hired specifically to do research and assessment.
I heard an acronym LRGC. Is that a thing? Molly?
I guess I'm going to weigh in. I think we're talking about what's in code, correct? Correct. An interpretation of what's in code.
No, we're asking who on our staff can give an expert opinion on the robustness of a
That-
research plan?
Oh.
Any research plan. Who could give an opinion on the robustness of any research plan?
I think the question is more, would our research plan, no matter how robust it is, pass the muster of LRGC? Because, I mean, we can put together a research plan and say it's a robust research plan. We can meet, I mean, that we clearly have on staff. Whether or not the next level determined that they're as good as it's going to get. I think you'll be. I think as long as we have. I mean, yes. I see what your question is. We can make sure on staff, you lead, Director Bruff, our data and statistics team can make sure that we have a robust project plan. However, any project, I mean, at the end of the day, it's whether or not that research is seen as research when it hits whoever determines whether it meets the definition of code. And while the AAGs can give their opinion, there can be other interpreters of code that could say, well, we read the code differently. So yes, we can make sure that there's a robust research plan that meets the criteria of research plan. But at the end of the day, somebody else decides whether or not code is interpreted correctly. Does that make sense?
Chair, may I? So I'll ask Member Hall to decide what, I'm speaking for him too much, but so what I'm hearing is the amendment needs to not be what I made. It needs to be, the motion instead would read that the board approves the use of $120,000 of federal mineral lease funding for this project and work cooperatively with the superintendent on a robust research plan.
Absolutely. It's somewhat of an existential question, right? How do we interpret code?
Sure.
At the end of the day, there's no guarantees when you're talking
Understood,
about
there's
code.
no guarantees, but this would direct staff
We
to help
will-
work on a robust,
we
according
will-
to our definition, research plan.
We will ensure that the research plan that is put forth is something that we would put all of our names on as people that earned doctorates.
May I make that amendment, Chair?
Yep.
So it actually would be a substitute motion. That the board approves the use of $120,000 of federal mineral lease money, FML, funding for this project. What did I just say?
As
With the understanding that the superintendent will work cooperatively on a robust research plan. And I'll speak momentarily to it.
Let's make sure we have it clear on the board before we open it up.
Okay. And Cole was the second, right? Yeah. Chair Kelly.
The screens in front of you are struggling. Jerry is working on it still, but for now we'll have to use the others.
Research plan instead of project. Might I speak briefly?
Yep, let me make sure. Let's put this on the floor here. The motion is that the board approve the use of $120,000 of federal mineral lease, FML, funding for this project, with the understanding that the superintendent will work cooperatively on a robust research plan. That's the motion, Member Davis. And you second that, Member Kelly? Okay, Member Davis.
I'll just speak briefly to say it is understood that the term robust is subjective. And while we as our staff may think it's robust, others legally may not. And that's the risk that we would need to take in this. I'm willing to move forward for the reasons that I stated prior. Thank you.
Okay. I've got a long list of individuals who want to comment. I want to remind the board that our adjournment time is 7 p.m. We are 1 hour behind schedule. So keep that in mind as you're making your comments. I know. So we've got Member Kelly, Member Green, Member Wood, Member Carey, Member Lear. Good on you, Member Earl. Okay, Member Kelly, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to recognize the concern of Vice Chair Bollinger, and I shared many of those sentiments in terms of, is this the role of the board? But I also, look at what our role is as board members, and I think that this is a good example of Board Member Hall listening to his constituents, meeting with his schools, reaching out to the members of his community, listening to their needs, and finding a way to represent his constituents, and I think it's appropriate use of this money, and I would say that I'm not seeing other proposals from other board members concerning FML money and research and development, and so I think that Board Member Hall's initiative in this and his legwork on this project, I think, is the reason why I will be voting yes on this motion, because I think that as a board member Hall has represented his constituents well.
Member Green.
Just a couple things. The main thing that I would like to understand is actually where Member Davis was coming from as well. I'm just wondering, is the goal of doing this to understand how to make an all abilities playground kind of blueprint moving forward for new builds or new installs statewide? That's the goal here. And so the next thing, having just worked kind of on the outskirts of installing a playground, there are insane regulations that exist already. Obviously, we want to be logical and reasonable and also safe as we develop this. I do. No, we're good. I do appreciate, the All Abilities playgrounds. We had an update to one of our local parks where they had that as part of their, and I will say, having a sister that is handicapped and 30 years old, and I had my little baby kids running around, we were all happy. So I definitely see the benefit of utilizing that. I just want to make sure though that I don't know whoever we've tried to understand this. I need to understand who tracks this and how we track, and that our goals of what we're tracking are very clear, and that can translate into what an all abilities playground looks for. The only other concern I have, which makes me hesitant, is new products are invented daily. You know, it's called the free market. So anybody can move forward with the latest and greatest new project and come back for monies like this. So, you know, I wouldn't want to see a trend in schools asking for this and through this vein, because I don't know that we could sustain that. So I don't know if we've talked about that, and yeah, so those would just be my concerns. And do we have a timeline on when we think that this would be coming back to us?
Are these questions to Member Hall? Member Hall, you want to answer the questions there?
I do. Thank you so much. And as far as the preparation goes for the playground, all that stuff's already been in the works. I think you probably saw in the proposal that $30,000 has been raised locally by the district already, so they do have some skin in the game on this too as well. But as far as the plans go to develop, it'll take 4 weeks to build. It'll all be contingent on really what happens here. I would love to see it up in the fall if we can get everything approved with the research plan. I would like to see it up and ready to go for the fall so we can track that whole year, continuing to track the information too that she's putting together on the extended time for recess as well. So having those things combined together to see how it strengthens student outcomes. But if you, in the backup, there's a lot of behavioral referral tracking, attendance monitoring, recess participation observation, cadence reading growth and data. They're going to track some of the same things they've done with the 15-minute increase in Davis right now. So right now they have the director of the Davis Education Foundation helping to participate in this, special education facilitator for Davis District participating and tracking the data, and also the Davis School District Elementary Director participating and tracking the data too as well.
Follow up, go ahead.
Who oversees the playground regulations? Like we're talking about, like you have to be a certain amount of feet from each toy, and
right. I think probably the principal, Megan Fairborn, I would guess, and then whoever else they have working on. Oh, you mean the regulations when they put it together?
Yeah, like the actual install of
it has to go through Davis District. This doesn't go directly to the school. This all flows through Davis District. So everything for the proposal for the play set has all been done through Davis District. I have an entire plan if you want to see that, from deconstruction to digging up the ground, to putting doing all the different things they need to do to install. So all those regulations are met. All the ADA regulations are met too as well.
And they're using a construction company.
Using a construction company, yeah. It's a Davis-approved construction company that they use, yeah.
Okay, next I've got Member Wood.
Thank you, Chair. Just through you to Member Hall, what role is the Davis School Board taken in this? As they will be having to maintenance further.
No direct role. I've been working with the superintendent, assistant superintendent, and the staff there at Davis to continue to move this forward. So no specific role, the board, but yeah.
I've got Member Earl.
Yeah, and I just, as I'm listening, once again, as I reached out to some schools, and maybe this is the way I envision it, is that as we get this information back, kind of like the rural schools, sports facilities, I can see a grant type of a situation there where people can apply for this. I just know as I called schools, every one of them, there was one that said we're trying to lean into this already with all of our playgrounds, which is great, or that type of thing. But every one of them said, we would love this. They said, when you get to the end of the money stretch, at the end of the, budget building, this isn't the first thing on their list. And it may be there, but it's not something that they're like, well, that's a wish list. But yet we know that students being able to engage and that inclusion piece, whether it's a structured inclusion on the playground or they just go out and play. And that's the ideal thing, right? Students engaging with students, but being able to do that is where I see this happening. Anyways, like I said, when I called schools, and districts, they said we would love something like this where there is a grant program. And like I said, going into next year, if we've got some solid information coming from Utah, and we can say, please, this is a good way to go, and helping with that. It's just hard to do it outside of it. And another thing, one of the schools said we couldn't find. They looked and looked for grants, and to help them with this, and it just was hard to come by. So,
Member Lear.
One of my questions was answered about a match, and I really appreciate hearing that the school is invested in it personally. We keep seeing emails about additional legal issues. I wonder if we've heard all of the legal issues or if these are newer ones that AAG Cooper didn't get to yet. Is that an appropriate question to ask you or her?
You're welcome to ask
The
AG Cooper. Thank you.
Sorry, the additional legal issue is actually the other formal legal issue that you asked for an opinion on, so it's not related to the playground equipment.
Okay, thanks. I didn't know. I couldn't listen and read the memo at the same time, so thanks.
I'm having the same problem.
Thank you very much. I also, my concern is, and this motion moves me 20%, maybe more in the direction of thinking this is a good idea. But I'm concerned also hearing that we're going to get more research, and we're going to hear it from our specialists at the USBE, but we're going to move ahead anyway. And I feel like if this is more than window dressing, if the additional research that shores up this project is legitimate, then we wait till we get it and not tell Davis School District, yes, the board voted yes, so that it's our expectations are not, their expectations are appropriate. So I also would feel better that we don't rush to get this. And I hear what you're saying about bureaucracy, and yes, it would be wonderful for the new school year. But if this research means anything, then it shouldn't be final until we see the new research. So that is an additional concern of mine. Thanks.
Member Bollinger, Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. And maybe I can direct this question to Member Hall. I know he's been leading out on this, but districts typically have a process for doing any kind of research within the district. They typically have, and I'm looking at Davis School District, and they have an application process for any outside groups to come and do research proposals or research projects within the district. It goes through their research and accountability department, because they have a process typically where they look at what data is collected, who's involved, is it protecting student privacy data, all those types of things. I'm curious, has this proposal already gone through Davis School District's process through their research and department, and do we have an official approval to do research within Davis School District?
Member Hall.
To the assistant superintendent, we definitely do have permission to do research, but I don't know if it went through their complete process, but this is a great opportunity for us to weigh in on that. I mean, we've already come to the conclusion that we're not going, there needs to be a robust research plan. So if we need to work with Davis, you lead, and our agency, then we can do those things together to create that robust plan before any checks are cut.
Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think Member Hall should be commended for taking the steps that he did. As a board, we always talk about inclusion and how important that is. And now we have an opportunity to demonstrate inclusion. We have an opportunity to take a stand and let the state know where we stand on that. And it's disappointing that some of the biggest advocates sometimes for maybe political or cultural inclusion aren't stepping up to the plate on inclusion when it comes to the most vulnerable students at our public schools. So I commend Board Member Hall for taking this position. As it's been expressed, these are discretionary funds that we can spend at the discretion of the board. And I think that we need more innovation, not less. And in terms of risk, if you're looking for a risk-free program, there's no such thing. There'll always be legal risk associated with any program. This apparently is de minimis, and I support the application. Thank you, Chair.
Member Green?
This is to the motion. Does this, the way it's written, I'm not saying that it comes back to us. At what point do or if we see that research plan? Is this ever coming back to us again after this motion?
To the maker of that motion. I don't know if you, Cindy? Let's hold on a second. Let's get a microphone on you so you can.
Sorry, I was addressing the non-microphone comment with a non-microphone comment back. Sorry.
Member Green asked a question. Yeah. So, well, did you get your answer? I don't know what's happening here. I'm going to be honest with you.
Really
Hold on.
understand what's happening here either, I guess, with the motion. It seems that we're hesitant to move it forward, and we're trying to build in a level of accountability and understanding with what we're doing. But as it's written, it seems that if we were to vote this forward, there's not anything that's built in that would report back to us on if a robust research plan was created, approved, and then continued. So I think maybe, I don't know, if I could amend it to have it come back in our next board meeting in August. Go ahead, yeah.
Is that an amendment? Are you putting an amendment forth? I don't
I don't understand what happens after this if we move it forward. Yes, Member Hall would like to make a suggestion through the chair.
Okay, you're jumping over Member Carey.
Sorry, am I jumping over you? Okay. I was just going to make the suggestion that if we wanted to, we could either have a report monthly in Finance Committee or quarterly in Finance Committee on the research that's being done on this plan. So, and that would give us an opportunity to be able to see it, right? It'd probably be in backup, the research plan, and then you could just get a quarterly. Right now, she's got it listed as at the 6-month mark and at the 1-year mark. But we could, if we did that, it would allow us to be able to see the plan, right, in backup that's there, and then be updated on a monthly or quarterly basis on what's happening with the research.
Member Green.
Amend this to say, we'll work cooperatively on a robust research plan and make an initial report to the board in the August board meeting. Or, yes. Is that fair? Is that legal?
So the amendment, let's keep an eye on it. The amendment, where does that, you're just tagging it onto the end of the motion? So the amendment would add to the end of the motion and make an initial report to the board in the August board meeting. Is that correct? Do we have a second? There's a second to that. Okay, speak to that, Member Green, or?
I just think that we need to, if this is a research program and we are looking to create, say, a blueprint for, some standards for all abilities, because this isn't something that necessarily exists statewide, then I think we probably should be a little bit more involved than just passing this off and saying bye. So I think this might help.
Member Carey, to this motion? Go ahead.
I can make it now, but
Go ahead. If it's information, let's just take it.
thank you. So, Chair, at 11:03, about 12 minutes ago, we received an email marked attorney-client privilege, and I just have questions about that. It indicates that this information is being provided due to a request made by the board. I don't remember making that request as a board member. And so one of my questions is, if this was a request made by the board, when did that vote take place? And if not, how was the request formulated and submitted? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Is it regarding this topic, or there's a lot of topics that this could
It
refer
says
to?
question presented regarding the board use of USBE FML discretionary funds for development of playground equipment.
Member Davis or Chair Davis?
Yes, thank you. We had a kind of a split opinion in our committee, and so the committee, moving forward, voted to request that the AAG provide an opinion to the board for use in the full board discussion, and that's where that came from.
So, Chair, I guess a second point of
Follow up.
information.
Go ahead.
Thank you. It says to board members, I would just request that in the future, if it comes from a specific committee, and it's my understanding committees can request and direct the AAG, that instead of addressing it as though the full board made the request, perhaps at least indicate where the request originated from.
I mean, I think that's a fine request. The request was made to send to the full board. I think that's why you're getting it here. But for clarity of where it came from, I don't have a problem with that. AAGs, is there a problem saying, hey, this was moved in committee? Here's the response. Laura?
No, if we're aware of that, quite frankly, I wasn't aware that that's how it came. It showed up on my email and I answered it. So I will make sure that we're much more clear on how the questions originate from here on out so that we don't have that question in the future.
Thank you, Chair.
Appreciate it. Thank you. That brings us back to the motion, which is an amendment by Member Green. We did have a second. She spoke to that. So the amendment is to add to the substitute motion of Member Davis and make an initial report to the board in the August board meeting. Seeing no additional lights, let's go ahead and vote. So that passes unanimously. So the motion before us is now, it will now read that the board approve the use of the $120,000 of federal mineral lease FML funding for this project, with the understanding that the superintendent will work cooperatively on a robust research plan and make an initial report to the board in the August board meeting. Seeing no additional lights, Member Lear, go ahead.
So does this mean that the project proceeds before that August meeting or not?
If I'm understanding correctly, I believe it proceeds and we'll have a follow-up in August.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. With that, let's go ahead and vote. This motion passes 9 in favor, 5 opposed. Those opposed are Member Hymas, Member Lear, Member Wood, Member Reel, and Member Bollinger. Back to you, Chair Davis.
Okay. 3.5, the request has been withdrawn from the sponsoring board member. On item 3.6, there is a motion. I'll read the motion that came out of committee, but then I have a substitute motion. There's a motion that came out of committee that the board seeks a legislative change to create an additional special education formula to add 1.5 WPUs per SPED admin per SPED ADM for LEAs with schools with more than 70% special education ADM, which means average daily membership. I just lost my okay.
Let's put that on the floor, then we'll get to a substitute.
Okay.
So the motion that came out of committee is that the board seeks a legislative change to create an additional SPED formula to add 1.5 WPUs per SPED ADM for LEAs for schools with more than 70% SPED ADM. Chair Davis, you have a substitute?
Yes, thank you. The substitute is that the board work with the legislature to address the issues related to special education funding raised by LEAs and schools with unusually high rates of special education students, parenthesis, e.g. greater than 70%. Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me restate the motion. It has been seconded, but the motion is that the board seeks a legislative change to address the special education funding issue raised by LEAs and schools with unusually high rates of special education students, e.g. greater than 70%. Chair Davis?
Yes, just briefly by way of background, you all are already aware through the chair that we've had a funding issue with Spectrum Academy that we've been trying to work on for quite some time now. Then also other LEAs have said they have concerns about special education funding as well. We have been, or at least I have been working with our finance department, and Chair Hymas joined the last meeting with the Legislative Fiscal Analyst's office and meeting with them as well and a variety of stakeholders to try to get to what right looks like for funding for schools of this nature that have a high preponderance of students on an IEP in the school. And then also the conversation has looked more broadly as well. So that's the history of where this is right now.
Vice Chair Bollinger?
Thank you, Chair. I do appreciate the motion. I just have a clarifying question through you, Chair, to the maker of the motion, if I may. Just wondering, as a board last legislative session, we made a request to address this, and I know that Representative Miller had been working on something to look at the funding and specifically maybe looking at like the self-contained funding. This example you have of the greater than 70% is a population of students, but would this also include that self-contained funding for those schools that have students with those high needs and making sure that we're addressing those special education funding issues?
Chair Davis, hit your button again.
May I just clarify, when you said we voted for this last year, it wasn't specific to the schools that had 70% or greater. What we voted for last year to seek was self-contained, a look at self-contained funding. So I would say in this motion, the word "and" makes this not only specific to schools with a high preponderance of students with IEPs, but subject to all of special education funding and looking at how that's done and certainly the concerns that have been brought forward, many have been about self-contained funding. So we could pass this as it is now and really focus in on these schools with a preponderance of 70%, and then as a next step or as part of the conversation or longer term rollout, look at the self-contained funding. Or we can also make another policy request during the policy request time to specifically hit self-contained funding. So but I do think the word "and" is inclusive of that. But that's how the board wants to proceed.
Okay, I will restate the motion and we will vote. So the Motion before us is that the board seeks a legislative change to address the special education funding issue raised by LEAs and schools with unusually high rates of special education students, e.g. greater than 70%. Let's go ahead and vote. That passes unanimously. Back to you, Chair Davis.
Thank you. Item 3.7 is because the legislature addressed most of this last session. So the motion for the board is that the board suspend the property tax working group created by board motion on November 6, 2025.
Thank you. So the motion before the board is that the board suspend the property tax working group created by board motion November 6th, 2025. It's been seconded, which is not necessary, but just tells you, remember, the passion behind that. Yeah. Seeing no additional vote or lights, let's go ahead and vote.
That we're not going to do the property tax working group.
That passes unanimously, or I'm sorry, one abstention. It has 13 yes votes, one abstention from Member Green. Back to you, Chair Davis.
Thank you. Item 3.8, mental health screeners amendment. The motion is that the board approves R277-625 mental health screeners draft 2 on second and final reading.
Thank you. The motion before the board is that the board approve R277-625 mental health screeners draft 2 on second and final reading. Member Earl?
Can we really kind of look at this and just, this is one of those programs where I'm like, is this benefiting all students? I'm just, as we're doing that deeper dive, what is this money doing? When you actually look at the screeners that you can go to our site and look at the questionnaires. Are they mass giving this out to students? I guess every district's a little different. I really wonder about this program. So I'm just saying that in general as we're adding things to the list to do a deeper dive on. This would be one of those, just really what are the benefits to it? And maybe there are. But that's my question. And the last item, at the end of this thing, can I share just something? I forgot to add it to the last item when we had it on. I wasn't on there. No, at the end of finance. So
At the end of the finance report?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just to make sure you throw your light on, we'll call on you. Let me ask this. Was that your previous question, is that directed towards somebody or is that just thrown out there for people to hear?
I'm just throwing it out.
Okay. Well, with that, then I'm going to restate the motion. Oh, Member Green?
I think my concern, maybe to Member Earl's concerns, and I don't know if it's the same area, is to section lines 140 through 152. I'm wondering what it means that, or how the dynamics shift. And I don't know if staff can help me with this question. Member Earl, I don't know if this is something that you were concerned about as well, but where the superintendent shall determine a participating LEA's needs by considering the LEA's ability to support and provide mental health services for students, including, and then it has a long list there. Does that imply that if they don't have mental health services, does that include counseling of all different types and natures? I know that we have something coming forward with a federal grant receiving monies for the health and well-being of students. I'm just wondering how that all kind of ties together again, but it implies to me that if they don't have, robust mental health services within the LEA, that will be required. Am I understanding that correctly? I don't know if somebody on the committee could answer that.
Did you want to, you have a response, Chair Davis?
I might need to phone a friend, but I think this is just about the screeners from Representative Ellison's code. Yes, I'm seeing lots of yes nods. So I think I'm remembering that correctly. And I don't think they're mandatory either. I think they're optional for the LEA. They're optional.
Member Green, follow up.
Yeah, could you share the code with me? Do you have that by chance? It's probably in the notes.
Here. Let me see. It is 53E-3-401, parenthesis 4, and 53F-2-522.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's see here. Seeing no additional lights, let's go ahead and restate the motion before us, and that is that the board approve R277-625 Mental Health Screeners Draft 2 on second and final reading. Let's go ahead and vote. So I need one more vote. Okay, that fails. 7 in favor, 7 opposed. Those opposed being Member Carey, Member Longacre, Member Kelly, Member Hall, Member Brinton, Member Green, and Member Earl. Staff, I'm not sure what to do with that. If I get called up into admin rules, do I get to take all these names and say, hey, these are the people who don't want your rules, right? I mean, this is law, and we've had debates on here many times about law, and this is one of those interesting times where we're just saying no. So I'm not sure what that does for staff or LEAs, what that looks like, but again, that motion fails. So back to you, Chair Davis. Oh, Member Carey.
Point of information, who is the prevailing party when there's a tie vote? So the prevailing
Sorry.
party would be those who voted yes or no in that last vote?
No.
Those who voted no. Thank you,
Yeah.
Chair.
Thank you. Chair Davis, go ahead.
Can we hear from staff what the impact is of not passing this motion? What's going to happen with the boots on the ground? Does it just default to the code, or does the code? Well, it defaults to the code, right?
No, the rule's already in place.
The
So
old
whatever
rule.
the old rule is what's still.
So it's not updated to current law then? That's the impact.
Staff, I'm not sure if you guys want to answer that. Yeah, I mean, essentially, yes, we have a rule that's outdated. We're saying, no, we don't want to update it to meet the law. We want to just.
So we'll just
Continue
add
on.
confusion to the field. Thank you. No, I'm not saying I agree or I disagree with the vote. There are a lot of things I vote for that I don't agree with because it's in code and we got to add clarity to the field. Okay, thank you. Next, we are on item 3.10. Motion for the board that the board approve R277-911. We did, sorry. The motion for the board on 3.9 is that the board repeal R277-916, college and career awareness, on second and final reading.
Thank you. The motion before the board is that the board repeal R277-916, college and career awareness, on second and final reading. Seeing no lights, let's go ahead and vote. That passes 13 in favor, 1 opposed, that coming from Member Carey. Back to you, Chair Davis.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you. Item 3.10. The motion for the board is that the board approve R277-911 Secondary Career and Technical Education Draft 1 on second and final reading.
Thank you. The motion before the board is that the board approve R277-911 Secondary Career and Technical Education Draft 1 on second and final reading. Member Lear?
I had a question that I'd asked Chair Davis earlier this week, and she partially answered it, but I was looking for a more, a sort of a more, a stronger, deeper question, and that was, why in this rule is there a differentiation between charter schools and traditional schools? And I just wondered if somebody in the FTE, in the CTE field, sorry, getting my acronyms mixed up, in the CTE field could tell me the reason, not just that the distinction is laid out in the rule, but why that distinction. So I would leave it to you to see who's the most appropriate person.
Molly, do you have an idea of I don't see any staff running to the table. Oh. Are there no, pull that chair, yeah, grab that chair.
Running is a big word. Talia Longhurst, Director of Career and Technical Education. To answer the question, that is a historical use of language. We agree that it needs to change. In the areas where it does need to change, that will be part of the work group that you're going to hear about later from Standards and Assessment Committee, part of the changes that will come forward in the work later this fall. So we agree that that needs to be changed.
So to be clear, you're putting together a group of stakeholders to actually discuss this.
Not just that piece, but that will be a
But the
small
whole
part of it.
bigger piece, so that all stakeholders can weigh in and you can have a common understanding.
Yeah, the changes that you see in this rule today are the ones that are required from recent legislative changes. We wanted to get
Thank
that
you.
done, finished on the book, so it's ready to go July 1, and then there'll be additional changes coming.
I had I had two more questions, and one of them now does not make sense to me, so I won't ask that one. But may I ask one more question? Well, and maybe to Leah. Let me look again at the lines. On lines 458 through 467. Let's see if it makes sense to me now. Respect to provisional listed. I think I will just ask this in a more general way. Why were you crossing out, why are you deleting career awareness for use of these funds, and also no longer using it for school counseling, if that's
Chair.
okay?
And because those are the changes that were made, some of the changes that were made by the legislature.
Okay.
They removed the carve-outs for college and career awareness, and
And for
they moved school
counseling.
counseling funding over into its own line.
Thank you, and that speaks to, I could have read that carefully myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the motion before us is that the board approve R277-911 Secondary Career and Technical Education Draft 1 on second and final reading. Seeing no lights, let's vote. That passes unanimously with 2 absent. So, Joanne, are you throwing a vote on here? Or you? All right. It's going to pass unanimously with 1 absent in just about 10 seconds. Or I shouldn't say, I'm telling you how, okay, we're good. Now it's unanimous. Okay. Thank you. Back to you, Chair Davis.
Thank you. Item 3.11, R277-407, school fees amendment and continuation. The motion is that the board continue and approve R277-407, school fees draft 1 on second and final reading. However, we were working on some alternate language.
If I can address that, that's the one that we asked for additional time on, because in the course of reviewing everything, we found that the new legislation is in violation of the permanent injunction from the 1994 case Doe v. USBE. So we're trying to figure out if we can square what the legislature has done with what that case law requires. And if not, then figure out what the best way forward to advise you is at that time.
Chair, may I ask a question about time availability?
Yeah.
Through you.
Are you asking, are you looking to see if we can table this or not?
I'm looking to see if we can either bring it back to full board in a month or if we have time to have it go back to committee, because there are a couple of issues, and I've been working with the representative bill sponsor to try to get the legislative intent right as well. But I don't know if we have time with the timeliness of this.
Who would address, would that be a
Staff.
Scott question?
Do we have time for 2 months, or do we have to have this back in 1 month to full board? Can it go back to committee?
Well, 2 months, yeah. Yeah, okay. No, that's fine. So, Chair, to answer the question, it is a timing issue because of the mandate on the LEAs to provide public notice on their fee schedules. So, yeah.
So do we have time to bring it back to full board? Do we have 1 month to come back to full board with some amendments?
The short answer is no. We really need this done today.
What is that?
Messing with the timeline on the LEAs. So if you want not to do that, then we should do it today. So.
May I ask a follow-up question? Did we get any alternative language for the 4 lines, the trip lines?
No. No.
Yes. Thumbs up.
We're getting 3 different things. I need to put Laura and Scott in a ring and see who emerges.
No, I don't mean it that way. I really don't. But since you don't meet in July, it's difficult to, on one hand, expect that the LEAs will meet their timelines, and then so the intent was that we do it. Now we can work this out here today. Elise, being very well prepared as she always is, has motions that you can make so that we can get at least it out there too. I mean, we can still work with the legal aspects of it and bring it back for that. But I mean, that's what I'd recommend.
Seeing a shaking head, but Chair, would it be possible to put this on tomorrow? Postpone this to tomorrow afternoon.
Put that in the rule. Yeah.
You can make whatever motion you'd like. We have a point of information as you're coming up with a motion, or if you want to hear from Elisa if she has some motions, but we'll pause for a point of information if that's okay. Member Carey?
Yeah, go ahead. I'd like to hear Member Carey.
Yeah, so Chair, you're the only one. Thank you, Cindy. So Chair, my question would be with the, I'm inclined to support Board Member Davis's motion, but by pushing it off 1 day, is that going to be enough time for council to give us a better informed opinion? If the answer is no, I don't know the efficacy of doing that. That would be my point of information. Thank you.
Back to you, Chair Davis.
Yeah, I would say in the answer of the code conflicting with the permanent injunction, I just don't think so unless we reference the permanent injunction in the rule to cover ourselves because of this conflict between the injunction and the code. It's a problem that we can't fix in the rule. But there are some pieces of clarity that I think we can adjust with language that I've been working with the representative on that I think, but now I think we maybe should wait till tomorrow to see if we missed any other things.
So there's a phantom motion that has been seconded.
I would make a substitute motion that we postpone this meeting to tomorrow afternoon. This agenda item to the meeting. this agenda item to the meeting. Sorry to get everyone's hopes up.
Yeah, you have 14 seconds. So, okay, so
This agenda item to the meeting tomorrow afternoon.
and let me just clarify. Sometimes we have additional, we built in the spot. We've done that, and that is still on the agenda. Additional board items. So that is in order. The motion is that the board move agenda item 3.11 to tomorrow's overflow for unfinished business. Is that
Thank
your
you.
motion?
Yes, sir.
It's been
Thank you.
seconded. You still second that? Okay. Is there any opposition to this? Seeing no opposition, let's call that unanimous, and Chair Davis will go back to you.
Okay, thank you. We are on item 3.12, funding for at-risk students and students learning English. Amendment, the motion is that the board approve R277-632, funding for at-risk students and students learning English draft 1 on second and final reading.
Okay, the motion is that the board approve R277-632, funding for at-risk students and students learning English draft 1 on second and final reading. I've got Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. I have a few questions that have been brought up by some LEAs in the area that I cover. First is on line 42, when it talks about that the local board has to have a report of intervention effectiveness related to the LEA's use of funds. I'm curious to know what that means specifically. Does that just mean that districts can provide their own intervention data based off of what they're doing in their district, or is that going to be prescribed? Just wondering if I can get some clarity on that through the chair.
Please. Who's that to? Who's that to?
I think it's to staff.
Scott, are you searching a personality? What's going on back there?
Sir, we need Dr. Estrada. She was in here earlier, so she would be the most qualified to answer that particular question. She's here, so we're just trying to find her. So
we'll move on to another question from Member Bollinger, if that's okay.
Yeah, and maybe this would probably be directed to staff as well. The other concern that I have, I wanted to get some clarification on, is on lines 62 and 63, that it says that the LEA has no carry forward from the LEA's at-risk add-on funding for the preceding or the 3 preceding years. And my question on that is, does that mean they have to have $0 and 0 cents? Because to spend down an account to an exact $0 at every single school within an LEA, I think is just unrealistic.
Sam, are you taking this one?
Yeah,
please.
If I may, Chair. Sam Uri, School Finance Director. This provision has been in the rule. It does mean that. It means that the LEA is demonstrating that they're using every available resource in this particular line item, at-risk add-on, towards the, towards at-risk students, however the LEA defines that, and that's meant to demonstrate financial need. The code gives us direction to only fund LEAs that demonstrate substantial financial need, and this was the board's prior decision to require no carryover at-risk add-on funds. I will say that the use cases for at-risk add-on funds are fairly flexible. Again, LEAs can define what an at-risk student, a student at risk of academic failure means to their specific LEA, and then they can then use those funds to for various interventions for all of those qualifying students. We do feel that this is a fairly reasonable request, but if the board wants to make adjustments, we could certainly remove that provision.
Thank you for the answer. My question would be, how many of our current LEAs have would actually meet this criteria that have had no carryover for the last 3 years?
I would need just a few minutes to look that up. Unfortunately, I don't know that off the top of my head. But I do know that for special ed. But anyway, that's an aside. I would say I know there are some that do have carryover, but there are many LEAs that have no carryover.
So just to clarify though, so if there was an LEA that met the requirement and had an influx of students that would meet their criteria, if let's say that with their at-risk funds, they split up their at-risk funds at the local schools and there's one school that doesn't spend theirs, that would preclude then the whole LEA from participating in this.
So at-risk add-on funds are not allocated at the school level by USBE. They are purely on the count of ELL students and economically disadvantaged students. LEAs typically would not have just one school that's limiting them from completely allocating their at-risk add-on funds. That would be a very rare case, in my opinion.
If I may follow up. And I think this is a concern that was brought up, like I said, by our district in my area, because to spend out all of the funds, they want to use it responsibly. And to your point is, it's not necessarily to one school all the time, but they often share and allow some schools to have some local decision on that. So my concern about this is that it just leaves zero room for any error, even if you had 10 cents left over. And if somebody was allocating money for, let's say, a staff member and the number of hours they're working was off by even 1 hour, it could then preclude a whole LEA from this because just the way that the finance works in a school system. So my question, I guess, to demonstrate a need, is there a way we could be a little bit more flexible with this where it has not the word no carryover? It could be less than a certain percentage. I mean, I understand that we don't want to be giving these funds to districts that have plenty of money to cover this need. So I want to be respectful of that and the interpretation of it. But I also have been asked specifically to make sure that this is not the wording that's in this.
Chair, if I may, I believe a 5% threshold would be reasonable if that's the will of the board as well. It would demonstrate that the LEA is using 95% of the funds they've been allocated in a given year. So 5% would be reasonable.
Okay, I appreciate that. With that, I would like to make a motion that we amend line 62 to read that the LEA has less than 5% carry forward from the LEAs at risk.
Okay, let's keep an eye on the screen, make sure that your motion is captured here, and then we'll seek a second.
Yes, thank you.
So the motion is to amend line 62 to read that an LEA has less than 5% carry forward. Simple as that, right? Strike current line 62 and 63.
Well,
and then
yes.
Include, so this would be paren 2 or paren double I, your motion. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you.
Do we have a second? There's a second. Back to you if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just worry about the finances of a school and an LEA level is so complicated that if there's just like people try to make a plan to spend all their money, but things happen and it could be one employee not working 1 hour that then precludes our LEA from getting all of this funding. And that would really be just kind of a barrier and a red tape type of a thing and really doesn't go with the intent of this code. I also have had a chance to talk to Representative Perucci about the bill specifically, and the intent is to make sure we're getting the needs, but not, putting in some red tape at the state level that we don't mean to. So I think it just was an unintended consequence of when this was written previously. So I appreciate that, your time.
Thank you. Member Green?
Okay, my question's actually not to this motion, so I'll wait.
Okay, we'll put you back in the queue. Member Davis? You're just seconding that. Perfect. Member Carey?
Thank you, Chair. I have a question. So I understand the concern that we don't want to cause issues for that LEA that, has 10 cents or $1.50 in their account. My question is, though, with 5%, what would the potential range of balances be in that 5% carry forward? Are we looking at thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars? Like, what is I don't want to go from one extreme, meaning we're going to impose this harsh penalty if you're $1.50, in the budget, to, well, it's okay if you have $900,000 in your budget at the end of the day. Is there someone who could address that? Thank you, Chair.
And also, I want to be that school that has 900,000 as 5%. Get me, yeah. Can we?
That's
Scott,
only districts. Charters don't have that privilege. So,
staff, any thoughts on that? Just take a second. Okay.
Chair Carey, based on our current largest district, Alpine School District, which, as you know, is splitting, but 5% of their carryover balance would be about $500,000. That would be the largest. For most LEAs, it would be less than $200,000.
Okay, so the amendment is to, on line 62 and 63, we're going to replace double I to read that the LEA has less than 5% carry forward from the LEA's at-risk add-on funding for the 3 preceding years. That doesn't sound, go ahead.
Yeah, Chair, when I made that motion, it was to just have the less than 5% carry forward, not over the 3 preceding years. Just to replace that that the LEA has less than 5% carry forward from the LEA's at-risk add-on.
So the motion before us is that the board amend line 62 to 63 to strike no carry forward and replace with less than 5% carry forward and strike for the 3 preceding years. That's the motion. Seeing no lights, let's go ahead and vote. That passes 13 in favor, 1 abstention, the abstention from Member Carey. That brings us to our underlying motion. I know you had a question, Member or Vice Chair Bollinger. Did we get somebody who can respond to that? Who are we looking for? I can't remember. Scott, go ahead.
Well, sir, this is just part of the process. We need more time to answer Board Member Bollinger's first question, right? So we thought Dr. Estrada was here. She's not. So we need some time to consult with her to get that answer. Is that acceptable or amenable? for decision-making purposes. We just don't have it right now.
Yeah, if I may, Chair. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not mandating a specific piece. And so if there's some flexibility for districts to demonstrate their effectiveness based off of their own factors, I imagine that, I mean, that's really what I just wanted clarification on. And maybe just on public record, just want to put that I don't think that we should mandate specific outcomes for each LEA. And I think that should be, because we're also talking about LEA's local board, where I just want to make sure we're providing flexibility for local boards to make those decisions.
Sure, and I think so, but we really need the expertise to help us answer that question. So we need time, sir. So
Thank you. If it does pass, we can bring it back if we go through that process as well. So, okay. Member Green.
So so we're asking for the 3 preceding years to be struck from that. Is there a reason we wouldn't keep that? Could you help me understand that?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that question. And I think that part of that is when you're talking about balancing funds for 3 years, it gets really sticky and there's a lot of layers. And if we're backdating it to 24, 20, or like previous years and districts don't understand what they would need to have to meet this requirement, we may have districts that have an influx of students but because back in 2024, they didn't spend down that money, even though they still don't have it now for several years, they wouldn't qualify for the funds. So I just want to make sure we're not unintentionally taking districts out of access to this funds for current needs because of something that happened 2 or 3 years ago. So it's a current need, this year's students, this year's needs.
Okay, so the motion before us is that the board approve R277-632, funding for at-risk students and students learning English, draft 1 as amended, on second and final reading. Let's vote. That passes unanimously. Over to you, Chair Davis.
Thank you. Item 3.13, the motion is for the board that the board approve R277-634, grants and scholarships, draft 1 on second and final reading. And it looks like we have an amendment here that needs to be added in. May I make that amendment?
Let's get it officially on the floor, then we'll amend if that's okay. The motion that came out of committee is that the board approve R277-634, grants and scholarships, draft 1 on second and final reading. Back to you, Chair Davis.
Thank you. I move that the board amend R277-634, grants and scholarships, draft 1 by adding the words subject to legislative appropriations on line 216 after section 53G-9-216.
Is the motion correct on the screen? There's no line 216 on rule.
This, I think, was added by staff to my chair report after committee, so I'm just asking. There's no line 216. Deputy Jones, does this sound familiar? Or Deputy Newey?
Apologies. It's after the 216 that is on line 61. So look at line 61 at the end of that sentence. So I've amended the motion on the board to reflect that. Apologies.
So, Member Davis, is this the correct motion?
Yes, sir.
So, and this is where's the amendment, or is this a substitute?
That's an amendment.
That the board amend, that's right. That the board amend R277-634, grants and scholarships, draft 1 by adding, quote, subject to legislative appropriations, end quote, on line 61 after section 53G-9-216. Okay, is there a second to this motion? There's a second. Do you want to speak to that, Member Davis?
No, sir.
Okay, Member Lear?
Completely different question, but let me call attention to line 59 that says 633 instead of 634
Is this relevant to the motion?
to further confuse me. No, it's not relevant
Oh,
to, I'm sorry, then I'll wait.
Let's take care of this motion
Sorry.
first, and then
Thank
we'll
you.
get back to you.
Apologize.
No worries. So the motion again is that the board amend R277-634 grants and scholarships draft 1 by adding subject to legislative appropriations on line 61 after section 53G-9-216. Seeing no lights, let's vote. And that passes unanimously. That amendment passes unanimously. Now, Member Lear, your question? Is it on the same rule though?
Yes.
Yep,
Yes,
go
it is
ahead.
on the same rule. I was that close.
Okay.
I found this rule kind of confusing because it combines these two issues, but as I went back trying to make sense of this and went back to I think it was Representative Welton's bill that threw in this citizenship information. As I read the bill, which is now, and the issue I'm talking about in the bill is in 53H-11-416. So I'm not trying to confuse or be too tedious. But in that bill, it says the board will set in rule these weights, and the rule is the language is define weights and consideration for the students who would receive these scholarships. And that is not in this rule. And that troubles me because the superintendent, it's laying out that the superintendent shall develop the application, but because it's as the rule writing manual says, it should establish the basic conditions that would affect outside people. And that's just paraphrasing. But the people who are the students, their parents who are applying for this should know what the criteria are. And those should be in a rule, not just in an application, I believe. So that troubled me that those are not in and there may be, I kind of lost kind of energy in trying to figure this out, but it feels like there are other elements of that particular statute that need to be provided for the board, for the public in the rule, not just in an application.
Do you mind if we go to Deputy or Elise?
Sure.
Thank you. Elise Newey, Deputy Superintendent of Policy. Yes, we 100% agree with you, Member Lear. There is another portion of this that is in another rule that's coming before standards and assessment today, which is on how educators grade citizenship. And we need to get that nailed down before we can figure out what these specifics for the scholarship will be. So after we get that rule passed, then we will come back and amend the program to reflect the grading practices as they're laid out in other areas, if that makes sense.
The cart before the horse.
A little bit, yes. But we're trying to meet legislative intent and our deadlines while still trying to roll out a coherent program.
So just to further clarify, if that's okay, Chair, I'm assuming it is, that then all of the elements that it says the board will must decide will be in the rule.
They will, yeah.
And will they come back to this rule, or will there be a second rule that will? It just seems a really confusing way to make the public aware of this information.
I agree. It will come back to this rule specifically because this is the scholarship program. So we want to make sure that it's in that rule. yeah, the issue is that the grading practices are in a different rule, and those are not quite clear in code. So we are needing our standards and assessment and this board to figure out what the grading practices themselves should look like, and then we can update the scholarship program.
So again, so the grading practices will also be in this rule. Is that right?
As they impact the scholarship program.
As they apply to the scholarship program. Okay, I will defer to my problem with the cart before the horse and say that I believe you'll put these in the for the public to know what those concerns are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Member Davis. Hold on. There you go.
Only to address the first part of the concern, or the question was why two pieces are in the same rule, and that's because we are piloting, if you will, something where every new grant and scholarship that is small 1 year only grant and scholarship will all be in one rule as they come out through the legislature. So LEAs aren't searching all over for all the different things. There's all the small grants and scholarships will be in one rule that are 1 year only funded.
Okay. So the motion before the board is that the board approve R277-634 grants and scholarships draft 1 as amended on second and final reading. Let's vote. That passes unanimously. Back to you, Chair Davis.
Item 3.14, motion for the board is that the board approves R277-100 definitions for Utah State Board of Education rules, draft 1 on second and final reading.
The motion before the board is that the board approve R277-100 definitions for Utah State Board of Education rules, draft 1 on second and final reading. Member Carey?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, if we could just call up the language regarding the definition for absence as proposed in the rule change.
Can you just pull up the definition of absence from this rule 100? Again, this is agenda item 3.14, R277-100. The request was to put the definition of absence on the screen.
Yeah, so, Chair, my question, and you can direct this to the individual on staff that you feel is best suited to answer it, but so it's my understanding that this absence only applies to those students enrolled in a validated program. Is that correct?
I'm getting a correct from staff.
And so, despite all the time and money audits by the legislature and others regarding attendance, it's my understanding that the board does not have a definition of absence that would apply to those students attending public school who are not enrolled in a validated program. Is that correct in Rule 100, or am I missing something?
Elise.
So there's an A and a B. So in the legislation that this is being modeled after or responding to, there is a bifurcation of attendance. So we have the learner validated programs, and then we have the attendance validated programs. So the first lines that you'll see are for the attendance validated. So if participation is measured in how often a student is attending. That's how we measure absence. If it is measured by competency or learner progress, then it is measured by the B, which is the continuing enrollment measurements that each program needs to have on their policy. So for a lot of them, it's logging into the program every 10 days. They don't necessarily care if you're in there for 40 minutes every single day, but if you're logging in consistently, then they count that as learner validated measurements. So
Thank you. And my question then, Chair, is these two definitions, or the Part A and the Part B, meaning the validated program and those involved in a learner validated program, do these two categories encompass all of our students currently enrolled in our public school system? And then I have one follow-up after that.
Yeah, the response is yes, it does.
Okay. And then do we have a percentage breakdown of the number of students whose attendance would fall under part one and then part B? Do we know what our current breakdown is?
about 10%.
Elisa, your light came back on. Is that you?
Yes, sir. So the majority of our students are in the attendance validated program, we would guess, and our director can look at the official numbers, but it's about 90% attendance validated and about 10% learner validated.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Elise.
Thank you. I don't see any additional questions on this, so let's tee it up for a vote. But I will ask, it's just a technical change, and since Christina's not here, I'll see if I can slip in a technical change. Just put the 1A, so yeah, so it's A and B. Okay. With that, then, the motion before us is that the board approve R277-100, definitions for Utah State Board of Education rules, draft 1, on second and final reading. Let's vote. That passes unanimously. Back to you, Chair Davis.
Item 4.3, motion for the board is that the board approves R277-419 pupil accounting draft 1 on second and final reading.
Yeah, just for clarity, we just jumped from 3.14 over to our next agenda item.
Did I? Oh my gosh, I grabbed the wrong packet. Sorry.
I mean, we're doing it. I love the jump.
Well, you'll be happy to know 3.15, 3.16, 3.17, and 3.18 were all moved to May 22nd. So, and I believe that the rest are just information items, so we can move to the May 22nd meeting.
Okay, so we'll move to agenda item 4. This is our May 22nd finance meeting. Go ahead.
Item 4.2, motion for the board is that the board approves R277-726 statewide online education program draft 1 on second and final reading.
The motion before the board is that the board approve R277-726 statewide online education program draft 1 on second and final reading. Member Lear?
Thank you. I had 3, what I hope are short questions. I'm looking on line 206. Oops, and I have to get there too. Sorry. Shoot, I can't get the. Hang on one second. I don't think we want. I don't. Okay, hang on. Okay. In a very long rule. Line 206. I'm wondering about the language, and maybe this is not, as a technicality, not worth worrying about, but it says, it talks about an unexcused absence means an absence recorded when a student fails to meet participation requirements and does not respond to outreach. I'm wondering if student should be student or parent. it feels like I don't want to make too much of this, but it feels like a parent should be involved in this. Is there any concern about that, or did you intentionally leave out parent? Line 206, I'm sorry. And it's about an absence and an excused absence, which technically should involve parents, but maybe because it's usually secondary, you're only having student, I don't know. I just want to make sure that a parent would satisfy this concern.
Elise, go ahead.
Sure, thank you. So just to clarify, so you're saying that your question is that a parent could call or
could respond to outreach.
Respond.
And
Yes.
probably would be the more likely responder. The student who has an unexcused absence is probably not going to be the one to respond. Just guessing.
That's my understanding. So this actually goes to Board Member Carey's question. So this would go into the learner validated programs, and they would have their specific policies for what happens when, what the participation requirements are and what the response would need to be. So that would be outlined in their policies. So I would think that this would capture that. But if we'd like more clarity, I'm happy to make an amendment.
I guess, I mean, it could be as simply addressed. If I'm not, I don't want to, I was not trying to make it as complicated as learner validated versus attendance validated, but it just seems like it should say student or parent.
Yeah, we could add that in as a motion.
It seems a technical change, but
we could do that.
An amendment then?
I would, unless Elise thinks it's a non-substantive change.
Well, rather than taking the time to do it, I don't think it's going to hurt to do it. I'll second it.
Okay.
If you'd like to put it forth.
I would like to add or parent on line 206 in R277-726.
Let me seek clarity as you're putting this together. So I believe when you read 206, if you just add or parent, it reads recorded when a student or parent fails to meet participation requirements and does not respond. So I wonder if it would go after and the parent or student does
Right.
not respond to outreach.
Better, thank you.
Is that on the, does that work? Member Lear?
Oh, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting I have to turn around. I think and the parent or student does not respond. The student or parent, however you want that, but it has to come after the end. Yes, that's accurate. Thank you.
So here's the motion before us. I'll second it, and then Member Lear, do you want to speak to that additionally?
I just think that if we want to be realistic, the parent should be involved. Because probably the unexcused student will not do that work.
Okay. Member Carey to this motion?
No.
Okay. Let's restate this motion and vote on it then. The motion is, and this is an amendment, that the board amend R277-726 by adding the parent or student to line 206 after and. Seeing no lights, let's vote. That passes unanimously. Okay. Member Lear, keep going.
1011 through 1013.
What does that mean? Section
Those
10?
are where
lines?
my, they seem to conflict. lines 1011 through 1013 seem to conflict with lines 1014 and 1015. And if they do not conflict, then I need an explanation, please. A student may take up to 6 program credits per academic year unless the student's primary school agrees that more credits better meet the academic needs. And then 1014 says a student may only exceed 6 program credits where there is an approved early graduation plan or exception allowed under the primary LEA. So it looks like there can be an exception allowed for any reason, as opposed to 1011, which says that it has to better meet the student's academic needs.
So if I'm understanding correctly, you can't exceed 6. You can take up to 6, but can't exceed 6 unless it's in their policy.
No, unless the primary school agrees that more credits better meet the academic needs of that specific student. That's the first part. And then the second part in 1014, a student may only exceed 6 program credits where there's an approved early graduation plan or an exception. So it feels like it's saying there has to be a specific purpose. And I'm sorry to be tedious about this, but I think that it's important to tell people when they can take more than 6 credits. And if any exception is the rule, then great. If it's only when it meets the student's graduation plan, that's fine too. Or if it's part of that's the graduation plan. Or if it follows anything under the primary LEA's policy, that's a third thing. But they cannot all be true.
I'm not sure if we have a staff response to that.
Pardon me? Or we could just delete either 10 through 13 or 10 through 10, 14, and 10.
Well, let's hear from staff before we start adjusting and see if it makes sense.
Yeah.
Please.
If you were saying something I'm not understanding.
Okay. Tammy here, Director of Achievement Support Services. Can you
Okay, 10, I'm looking at lines 10, 11 through 10, 13. And it says that this is when the student can exceed 6 credits.
Right.
And it says that can happen. The student can do that if the student's primary school agrees that more credits are right for that student.
Right. So this has to do with the payment. We don't want an LEA to have to pay for more than 6. So we limit it to 6 unless they have an early graduation plan and they get funding for that. And then, but if the LEA says, you know what, we know what this student's doing and they really need this and they agree to pay for it, then they can allow that. But the general rule is they can only take 6. Does that make sense?
The state will pay for that.
I get it. Let me just process that for a sec. Hang on a sec. I understand what you're saying. It feels like a sort of a mushy way of saying that. So that the parent who might be reading this rule, if referred to it, is saying, so it either the school has to agree. It feels like those things should be merged.
Okay, and I believe, I'm just pulling up the statute, because I think that's what that can
If it comes right from the statute, I won't try to defend that language or argue with it.
Okay, so the statute says an eligible student may enroll in online courses totaling up to 6 credits per school year, notwithstanding Section 2. A student's primary area of enrollment may allow an eligible student to enroll in online courses for more than the number of credits specified. So that's from the statute.
Without qualification.
Yeah.
So why don't we just say that? Because unless it better meets the academic needs of the student.
a student's primary LEA of enrollment may allow an eligible student to enroll in online courses for more than that number. Upon the request of an eligible student, the state board may allow the student to enroll in online courses so it does come down to the LEA's decision. And so we didn't want to just end it like they have a graduation plan, because the early graduation plan works for that. But this is giving that LEA a little bit more rights to decide what they want to do.
I hear what you're saying, but it seems to me that that's what trumps everything. So why don't we just say, under the primary LEA's local policy? And then then the policy can build in a specific graduation plan, or the policy can build in missing a complete school year or something like that. I think this makes for confusion. If you're saying to me, no, we want to keep it that way for some
I
reason.
think because I think it's an easy answer for early graduation plan. It's not so easy so putting it all into the LDA's policy where they can say, well, we don't care if you have an early graduation plan or not, you can't do it. This is the basic rule, unless the LEA wants to approve more. And I think if we take that out, that might limit that.
Thank you for the explanation.
Yeah.
I don't want to do anything. I'm fine.
Okay, I've got Member Carey, Member Bollinger, Member Davis, and maybe Member Wood.
It's directly related to that interchange.
Oh.
So.
You want me to put you back in?
Yes, just at the end.
Okay. Member Carey.
Mine is another motion unrelated to the action that's pending. Thank you.
Member Bollinger. Or Vice Chair Bollinger.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If I may, through you, just maybe to staff, just trying to seek some clarification. And I'm still in the same section under the student rights and requirements, so lines 1006 through 1009. It talks about in this section how at the very beginning on line 1000 that a student has to adhere to the student's primary LEA's established deadlines when dropping a physical course for a program. And then on lines 1006, it says, but they're not required to meet with their school. They can basically just go and enroll in a course request, and then it automatically drops the physical course from the primary school. So can I get some clarity on why those are written? Did these come from code directly?
This is from code, and there's a couple of things. Number one, we don't want a student dropping a class after all those deadlines, because the LEAs are looking at how many teachers they need and what classes they have to fill. So statute puts this in there so they can't just drop a physical course anytime. But if it's in that withdrawal period and they want to drop it, the other one about not meeting with them, a student can just go on and sign up for a course through SEATS program. That then is sent to the LEA where they either approve or reject that course request. But that means that they don't have to get an appointment with a counselor and talk to them. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. So there is still some contact with the LEA to follow up to make sure they're not creating gaps in schedules or those types of things then.
Correct. So every request is looked at by the counselor who either recommends accepting or rejecting it. And then they have a primary approver within the LEA that says, okay, we're going to accept or reject it. And then and only then does it go on. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are we close enough? Okay. I think then we'll move on to Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. I just have some questions and most likely some related motions, but this first one is on lines 979 through 981. it says the superintendent may restrict an online provider from offering coursework if the online provider has repeatedly demonstrated low performance on statewide assessments in English language arts, mathematics, or science. So my question would be, and this is just one for clarification, let's say that they've demonstrated repeatedly low performance in science, but their English language arts and their mathematics is fine. Would the restriction apply to all three or just the one that is repeatedly demonstrated as low performance?
Go ahead.
So as the USBE, we are responsible for making sure that those online providers, we monitor them, we make sure that they're doing it. And then that would have to be a decision at the time. We would look at the overall picture, I think. That comes from statute. We've never had to do that before. So I don't know that at this point we have anything in the rule that says they can't do it for math. It would probably be that they would not be able to be an online provider.
So even if their results in English language arts and mathematics were acceptable, maybe even exceeded the results of some of our brick and mortar schools, the only subject that they repeatedly demonstrated low performance on statewide assessments was science. It's your understanding that we would have to restrict the entire online provider from offering courses in all three subjects?
I believe at this point, we don't have any direction if you would like to give us some direction on that, how that would happen, that was just brought over from statute.
Okay.
And we've never had to do it before, so if you wanted to give us some direction on that, we would certainly be happy about that.
Thank you. And my other question related to that same group of texts is, it says repeatedly demonstrated low performance. We have low performing district schools and charter schools on statewide assessments. Can you help me better understand what it means when we say demonstrated low performance on statewide assessments? Are we saying they could be low performing at the same level that some of our district schools and charter schools are performing, but the superintendent could close down that online school even though they're hitting the same numbers that our district and charter schools are achieving?
May I?
Yes, please.
Continue? Okay.
Sorry, through the chair.
So the biggest portion here is we have online providers that also have their online schools. We have no say outside of the SOEP. But the LEAs are paying money to online providers through this contract that we have for these classes. And we are responsible for making sure that if these kids are taking classes from an online provider and they're not providing a good service, we have to monitor that, because the LEAs are not going to be happy if we're just letting anybody teach their kids and they're paying for it. So these are just guardrails that are set up to make sure that the online providers for the SOAP are doing a good job and that the LEAs are getting what they're paying for.
Chair, may I?
Please.
I guess my concern is you use the word, that we need to monitor it, but this rule would give the superintendent not only the power to monitor, but to cripple or close it, right? So this isn't just hey, we're going to look and we're going to report back on the performance. This rule says the superintendent may restrict an online provider from offering coursework. Based on my understanding of what was just shared with us, even if this online provider is providing exceptional results in English language arts and mathematics and just underperforming in science, the superintendent could shut down the whole online operation. So my concern is that we're empowering the superintendent to close down a program that may have demonstrated low performance on statewide assessments. But even if that underperformance is equal to the performance of a district school or charter school, the superintendent could still say, yeah, it's the same results that we're getting from schools in the same area, but I'm going to close you down because you've demonstrated this low performance on statewide assessment. So I have some concerns about that. If we could go to line 987 and 988. The superintendent shall receive and investigate complaints concerning course integrity. And I don't know to whom this question should be posed, but do our district schools and charter schools, is there a rule that allows the superintendent to receive and investigate complaints regarding course integrity for our district schools and charter schools? And Vice Chair, I don't know to whom that question should be posed, but I'm curious to see again if we're singling out these providers for more, I don't want to say stringent because I think that's okay, but more punitive scrutiny than is necessary. So I'd like to know if our district schools and charter schools, if the superintendent, if there's a rule that empowers her to investigate complaints concerning course integrity.
May I?
Yeah, please.
So 53F4511, it talks about us reporting on the performance of authorized online course providers. We do a lot of gathering of information, how many kids are passing, teacher to student ratio. It's all in statute, what we have to follow. And so it's just that we are trying to say what do we need to look at as far as what they're doing, and the legislature's told us you need to gather this stuff. You need to make sure that they are doing the service they are, because we're kind of the guardians. So that's where a lot of this is coming from, is that requirement for us to report on those. And I know there's another one in here. So, apologize.
No, and I appreciate, Vice Chair, if I may, I appreciate that. But my question, and this might have to be directed to council or to Elise, our policy person. Is there a rule that the board has that currently allows the superintendent to investigate complaints concerning course integrity if it's related to a charter school or district school?
Deputy Superintendent Newey.
Thank you, Chair. We do have 123, which allows hotline complaints of anything having to do with the general oversight and supervision of schools. So I would imagine that would fall under this. And we also have, our rules and our systems over the curriculum vetting process, and following our different rules regarding what is provided in a classroom as far as instruction.
Does that answer and address your question, Member Carey?
It does. And then I just have at least one motion, and that would go to lines 978 through 980. And if Deputy Newey, if you could help me out with this, I want to make it clear that the superintendent may restrict an online provider from offering coursework in that particular program that has repeatedly demonstrated low performance. That the underperformance in one course should not require the closure of other courses being offered.
We're just giving staff a minute to queue this up, and we'll have Member Carey double check that his motion's correct. Then we'll look at it for a second.
Thank you.
And as they're working at this, are you meaning line 978 or 979? Because I'm looking at 978 and it says course load standards may differ based on subject matter. Are you wanting to start with the section 6?
979.
979?
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Oh.
Member Carey, does this accurately reflect your intention?
I'm just concerned that it still seemed to suggest that if an online provider offers coursework within a relevant contact area, if the online provider has repeatedly. Okay, now that makes. Yeah, I think that does work. I understand the purpose. So that would be the motion that I would make, and then I have one other motion following this one. Thank you.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, we have a second. All right, the motion is the board amend R277-726 by revising lines 797 and 980 to read, the superintendent may restrict an online provider from offering coursework within a relevant content area if the online provider has repeatedly demonstrated low performance on statewide assessment in one of the following areas: English language arts, mathematics, or science. Any discussion to this motion? Member Davis, did you have a comment on this, or are you just in the queue? Yes. Okay.
Just, Chair, may I ask really quickly, how many providers are we at now? Is it 8 still? SOEP providers, is it 8? 7?
7.
Okay. This sounds really reasonable on its face and probably is to many. Personally, I'm going to be a no on this just because we only have 7 providers. It's a halfway point between a brick and mortar opportunity in a charter or a district and a UFA opportunity where you can kind of choose anything. It's an online opportunity that is highly monitored. They must teach state core standards. There's some provisions that they are absolutely required to meet so that they're kind of this elevated opportunity as opposed to like a UFA kind of a situation. And I fear that if we takes some of the flexibility away from the superintendent to say, look, there's some real problems in this area, it's going to be hard to say to a student, you can register for English in this school, but you can't register for math. And how are you going to, just logistically, it seems really crazy and confusing to students to me. Even though for all intents and purposes, it makes sense, but for those reasons, I probably will be a no on this one.
Okay. So the motion before us is that the board amend R277-726 by revising lines 979 and 980 to read 6. The superintendent may restrict an online provider from offering coursework within a relevant content area if the online provider has repeatedly demonstrated low performance on statewide assessments in one of the following areas: English, language arts, mathematics, or science. With that, let's vote. That motion fails, 7 in favor, 1 abstention, 5 no votes. The abstention from me, Matt Hymas. The no votes coming from Member Bollinger, Member Booth, Member Lear, Member Wood, and Member Davis. Back to you, Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, my second motion would be, and again, I would ask for the staff's help with this. I'm concerned that, we have district schools and charter schools that perform repeatedly low on statewide assessments. And it seems like the way this rule is written that the online provider could be prevented from offering instruction for producing the same low results that some of our districts and charters do. So I would like the language to reflect that repeatedly demonstrated low performance on statewide assessments, when compared to those districts and charters, take into consideration the same assessment performance of our districts and charters in the same subject areas. So something to that effect. Thank you, Chair.
I'm not sure what that motion looks like.
Oh.
Help
Yeah,
us out
it couldn't
here.
be geographic, but I would just say the superintendent has to take into consideration the scores of our districts and charters. You couldn't just say in the same geographical area. It would just be the superintendent would just have to use her best judgment, but at least there's some guidance, because here you could have the SOEP provider being penalized for producing the same results as a district or charter, and that's what I'm trying to avoid.
Let me get some technical things out of the way here. I'm not sure what lines, and I'm sorry, I abstained from the last vote because I came in a little bit late, and so I've missed kind of your context and where we're looking. So, can you just tell me what lines we're looking at, or what section we would be adding?
This would be the same section, 979 through 981.
Okay, and so you're wanting to add this to subsection 6, is that correct? Add some verbiage?
Yes.
Okay. And we have some things something on the screen here. Member Carey, if you'll just take a look at that. You've expressed kind of the intent on what you want to see, but we don't have a sentence or line that will capture that. We want to make sure that your motion is captured here.
Yeah, I would do that. So let's say the scores of the districts, charters, and other SOEP providers, or you would prefer SOEP?
We're getting half of a conversation with the public here, Cindy. Let me.
Okay. I would just say, instead of taking into consideration the scores, because we reference assessment, I would just put maybe assessments or assessment scores. And I think if that makes sense to staff, just adding that after the word science, unless staff feels there's a better spot for it. Right, that's what I'm trying to say. Charter only has-
Member Carey, one, you're on a hot mic.
Thank you.
And two, does that capture your motion? And
Yes.
You're adding this to the end of 9981. So it would read, if this motion passes as is, it would read, the superintendent may restrict an online provider from offering coursework if the online provider has repeatedly demonstrated low performance on statewide assessments in English language arts, mathematics, or science, taking into consideration the assessment performance of other districts, charters, and other online providers, but I heard that there was some communications being specific saying other state online education providers. Is that
And it should be
accurate?
the latter, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
So let's adjust that in the motion. As that's being adjusted, so Elise, go ahead.
Providers within this rule is a defined term to specifically mean SOEP online providers. So this would be consistent with how it's used throughout the rule and mean that. Yeah.
So does that still work then? Make her the motion. Sure. Cindy, you are the queen of speaking without a microphone.
It
Please.
is today.
Yeah.
I'm bad today. Never mind. Just leave it.
You can't stop now. You've already get your question out there. Yeah, the public or whoever's listening, they want to know what you're saying.
Well, it doesn't make Ben Rasmussen crazy, but for this one provision, can we add in the words SOEP or statewide online providers?
Now you're putting pressure on them to
Just
make
for clarity,
judgment calls.
because it's a very different standard that's required between online providers in general and SOEP online providers.
Line 51 says, after approval, a certified, quote, certified online provider, unquote, shall hereinafter be referred to as an online provider. Does that satisfy?
Yeah, great. However, I'm good.
Okay. Can we? Yeah. Hold on a second. We are in the middle of this. Let's get this motion on the floor. We'll get it seconded, and then if it receives a second, then we'll open it up. So the motion before the board is that the board amend R277-726 by revising lines 979 through 981 by adding to the end of the line after, taking into consideration the assessment performance of the other districts, charters, and other online providers. Do we have a second? There's a second. Member Carey, do you want to speak to this? Okay, and so we've got Member Brenton.
Chair, just to the maker of the motion for a point of clarification and maybe to staff, I want to see if that reads clearly for what the maker of the motion is intending. So as I understand it, the intention is that the superintendent cannot block a provider for low scores if that district itself also has low scores in that area. Is that the intent?
To the maker of that motion.
Chair. Yeah, so because it's a statewide online provider, it's really difficult to limit it to geography, but the general intent would be that the superintendent would be required to look at the performance of other districts, charters, and online providers before deciding to prevent a particular online provider from offering courses. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Seeing no additional lights, let me restate the motion one more time. Again, this is an amendment, and the motion is that the board amend R277-726 by revising lines 979 through 981 by adding to the end of the line, taking into consideration the assessment performance of other districts, charters, and other online providers. Let's vote. Okay, that passes unanimously. I don't see additional lights. Are we at the main motion then? No. Member Lear?
I think I have language that satisfies my concerns on 10:11 through 10:15-ish. And it's now on the board. thanks to Gemini and Board Member Britton.
Okay, so this is an amendment to R277 dash, what are we on? Something.
726.
726. I just read that. The motion is from Member Lear that the board amend by striking lines 1011 through 1055 or 1015, excuse me, and replace with A, paren A, a student may take up to 6 program credits per academic year unless the student's primary LEA approves excess credits in accordance with local policy or an approved early graduation plan. Paren B, the
No, it's just that. That's all the changes.
That's just that change.
Right.
Is A. Okay, B stays the same.
Yes.
Okay. So that's the motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Member Lear, do you want to speak to it?
No, I just think it clarifies and doesn't feel inconsistent to me. Thank you. So I shouldn't say no. I just yes, briefly.
Okay, Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. And if I may direct through you, Chair, to the maker of the motion, I'm just trying to understand, as I read lines 1011 through 1013 currently, the way it's written, it says, unless the school's primary school agrees that more credits are better. So for me, the way I read this currently written rule is that section A allows the school to make the decision. And then line B also says it also has to be in alignment with the LEA's policy. So with the change that you made, was your intent to take out the school's ability to make that decision and make it be where it has to be the LEA making the decision instead of the local school?
Not necessarily. Thank you for being a careful reader. I think that it would be the school's or the LEA's policy. And to the extent they're different, I would think that a school would be aligned with an LEA. But if it's different,
I just want to make sure that in your motion, we still allow schools, it absolutely would have to be in alignment with an LEA's policy, but I would hate for them to have to go to a district for approval.
so would it be better to say school and LEA or school or LEA?
Yeah, my question would be if you left it as the way it currently is, then they wouldn't have to go to
That's
the LEA.
fine. Then, so the student's school approves excess credits. Does that satisfy your concern?
Are you simply speaking against the motion?
Yeah, well, no,
because
I'm just asking for clarification as far as the intent, because I guess the way that I'm saying is, so now the way you put this then duplicates what's in line 1015 about the early graduation for the LEA. So that's, I guess what I'm saying is that the way that I read the rule might be different than how you read it. So I don't think that there needs to be a change. I think that the section A addresses the school level, section B addresses the LEA level.
And if bless her heart, if that's what I'd heard to begin with, I could have seen that distinction. Let's just leave it alone. I think that's a good way to distinguish, and I'm fine.
this motion belongs to the body. Is there anybody hanging on to this motion?
With
Okay.
bated breath. Good.
Let's consider it withdrawn then.
I did have one other simple question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for your patience with trying to get that figured out. On lines 1019 through 1020, I'm just unsure what that says. It begins with the student may not fund program credits over full-time enrollment unless the student's primary LEA has increased membership to account for excess credits.
Okay, so basically, we can't agree for the LEA to pay for that course unless the LEA increases. So if they have an early graduation plan, then they can exceed the membership, right? So if an LEA wanted a kid, let's say they don't want to have an early graduation plan, but the LEA says, we'll let you take this course, then the funding does not, then we don't fund that. That's their choice, that they want to pay for that over and above.
So can I seek clarification? The student's primary LEA agrees to pay for the hour, agrees to independently pay for the, is that what you're saying?
Right.
Independently pay for the credits.
I may have just misspoke, and I
Okay.
apologize. Let me. There is some extra funds that come along with early graduation plans, and so I believe. And I'm sorry, I misread that. So the LEA could pay for it, but the funds that are available for those who exceed full-time enrollment are not available for that. Does that make sense?
No. Has increased membership. That's the phrase I'm kind of
So in
perseverating on.
Yeah, in UTREX they
Yeah.
in UTREX they have to mark them as or in their SIS system as an early graduate, and then they have access to funds for that early graduation plan.
And I still don't understand what that has to do with increased membership.
So my staff says the LEA pays either way, but
Erin
are
might want to
only-
help you there.
but are only funded for the extra credits if they establish that early grad plan and increase membership. So either way, the LEA is going to pay, but they're only funded for the extra credits if they've marked that. So the LEA gets reimbursed for that, those extra credits.
Member Lear, I'm going to ask a question, and I don't want to feel like you're being silenced or anything. Are you just seeking clarity? Can we move on and you seek clarity later, or do you have a motion in mind?
State a rule that doesn't make any sense.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm asking. I don't know if it's,
Yeah.
I know. I'm sorry. You know I'm looking at the clock.
I know.
I'm driven by the clock.
Apologize, and I'm sorry that we had so much on our agenda that I couldn't.
Again, this is not
cover
about
every detail.
This is not about you. I'm just wondering if there's a motion coming or if.
I want to give the staff the benefit of the doubt and say that this means something, and not to immediately skip to a motion that I'm sure is smarter than theirs.
Then let's keep going. Then again, I'm not. If it's like no, I'm going to vote for this. I just don't understand everything. Let's.
And we're
right.
just
But if this is relevant to your vote, then of course we want to get the answer.
It's so. If Erin can't answer it, I'll let it go. Okay.
I can answer.
A lot of pressure from you, Erin.
Thank you. Aaron Brook, Director of Data and Statistics. When we say membership, by the way, sharing, this makes perfect sense to me in how the process works, which is when they mark, this is the LEA in the UTREX submission process. When I say the LEA, they're the ones who submit. When they mark that it's an early graduate, they can go above and beyond the 180 membership days that they would get paid for.
Okay.
That's what it means. And so they mark the additional hours, if you will, or additional membership that the student is receiving, and that early graduate flag is the key that says, okay, that membership can go above 180. So it won't be, because that's typically the cap. Okay. And so that is what it means right there, is they've marked early graduate, and then that 180 then allows to go above what that typical cutoff is. That's what it means.
That's what increased membership means.
Yes.
Thank you. That I don't have a motion. Thank you, Chair.
Member Lear, I am sorry if I came off as trying to. Okay. The motion before us is that the board approve. Excuse me. Let me come back. We're on 726, is that right? The motion before us is that the board approve R277-726 statewide online education program draft 1 as amended on second and final reading. Let's vote. That passes unanimously. We are back to you, Chair Davis.
I'm so sorry. You know, I'm always trying to get the award for the short, and that's not going to happen today. We knew, and I feel much now like when I went to a golf tournament and won $50 for the shortest drive. And if any of you play golf, you do not want that award. I'm feeling that way today. I'm going to get the shortest drive award for the longest. And I'm not going to get the $50. Okay. We're on absentee and truism. And
No, we're on
no, we're not.
419.
We're on
People
419.
accounting.
Motion for the board. The board approves we move that the board approve R277-419 pupil accounting draft 1 on second and final reading. And then we'll move to absentee and truism.
Okay. The motion is that the board approve R277-419 pupil accounting draft 1 on second and final reading. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. I do have a question on this rule. If we can go to lines 243 through 244, and through you, Chair, if Member Davis can answer this, great, and if it needs to go to staff, we can go to staff. But it was talking about the minimum school days, and an LEA shall provide educational services over a minimum of 180 instructional days or equivalent instructional hours. So I guess my question is the wording here, is this going to be in alignment with Doug Welton's new bill, or is this one of those things that because the legislature came, we have to do this piece and we're going to go do that other rule and then come back to this rule? Because the way that his rule was written is that at a high school with the credits, if the high school is also in the same LEA as an elementary, that it could also amend the elementary days.
That's a very good question. By way of history, this used to be an and, not an or. Used to be, they had to meet 180 days and the 990 hours requirement. We created flexibility there several years ago. But as far as how Representative Welton's new bill will impact this, I think we will probably need to ask staff.
Elise.
Thank you for the opportunity, Chair. So we are a little bit unsure. Okay, let me answer it by saying yes. This line right here, the or equivalent instructional hours, is meant to address Representative Welton's bill. We are still a little unsure if we need additional guidance for LEAs on what that looks like, and if so, what that would look like. But for right now, this should address his bill and give LEAs the option should they pursue that measurement.
Thank you.
Okay. Member Carey?
Thank you, Chair. I just have a motion, and that would be on line 208. And at the end of that, we would just add or 53G-10-205. And then I'd like to speak to the motion.
So the motion is to add, or you want to say or? Is that what you said? Okay, so or 53G-10-205. And that's it, right?
Yes, sir.
It's that simple. Okay, do we have a second? Second. There's a second. Go ahead, Member Carey.
Thank you. So in this section, we're defining unexcused absence, and I believe that the definition is it fails to consider Utah Law 53G-10-205, which is our religious belief and right of conscience law, which clearly states and authorizes a parent or student to decide what to prioritize in terms of religious beliefs or right of conscience. And so that student cannot, by law, be punished for exercising their belief and prioritizing a different event or circumstance based on their religious belief or right of conscience. So in addition to those valid excuses articulated in the statute that's cited, 53G-6-201, I would just add 53G-10-205 to also cover that portion of Utah law. Thank you.
Okay.
And then I have one other motion, Chair.
Let's get through this one, and we'll get back to you if that's okay. We've got the motion before us is to add at the end of line 208 or 53G-10-205. Seeing no lights, let's go ahead and vote on that one. Okay. So the motion passes 12 in favor, 2 opposed. Those opposed being Member Bollinger and Member Hymas. We'll talk later. With that, back to you, Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. My second motion is related to the item that Vice Chair Bollinger brought up, line 244. I would just add the following words at the end of the sentence: and prioritizing academic excellence in its decision. And again, I think I think the latitude and leeway offered in this rule is great. I think it's something that our LEAs and schools need and deserve. But I also think, just based on the number of waivers that we have seen come before law and licensing, that there needs to be some organizing principle. And I know that this board, is one of its priorities, is academic excellence. So I would add and prioritizing academic excellence in its decision, to again offer some guidance to the LEAs and schools as they consider which option to take. Thank you, Chair.
So at the end of line 244, we want to add and prioritizing academic excellence in its decision. That's been seconded. Do you want to speak additionally to that?
I apologize, Chair. I spoke to it before.
No worries. Okay. Seeing no additional lights, let's go ahead and vote then. Okay, that passes 8 in favor, 6 opposed. Those opposed being Member Lear, Member Booth, Member Bollinger, Member Hymas, Member Wood, and Member Reel. Okay. Yep. Member Carey, go ahead.
Thank you. I just have a question regarding line 329. And it appears to me that this section deals with, as it says, the student's place of residence or convalescence for at least 120 minutes each week during an expected period of absence, if physically excused from such a facility for an extended time due to, and it lists these items. And I would just ask staff to explain 329 and why that is an LEA determination and how that reconciles with 53G 10-205. Thank you, Chair.
Do we have a? I see him conversing. Well, I can give you an example, and she can as well. Yeah.
Chair, you voted opposite me 2 times on this rule, so you are the last one I'll be asking for. Superintendent, please.
I just got vote shamed.
Are you going to talk about, you want to talk about, you talk about behavior when? Yeah, sometimes when a student is, has some behavior issues or extreme circumstances, it's determined that education in their home environment may be more appropriate. It is, I have never seen it not be an absolute last resort, but for their safety or the safety of others, home instruction may be something that the district provides. That is an example of a use case. I don't know. I'm simply buying them time to answer the second part of the question about how it intersects, because I'm not real. I mean, a parent could, I mean, could you tell me a little bit more about that? Why you're asking where the intersection is? That's when you would prescribe something like line 329. But given that circumstance, can ask the question in a different way, maybe?
Yeah, so when it says an LEA determination that home instruction is necessary, does that authorize or empower the LEA to dictate the location and time and manner of home instruction, or is it just saying we're not going to instruct you here? That's really what because I'm more okay with saying the LEA saying we're not going to give you instruction here. We're not capable of doing that given your condition, rather than saying we're going to dictate where, when, and how that instruction will take place, even though you're not here at school. Does that distinction make sense, Superintendent?
Well, not when circumstances like that come up. It could be, oh geez, something happened, and it's really everybody. I mean, you're meeting with the family. You're trying to figure out a solution, a best way forward to provide instruction in a way that meets the student's needs, but also, is cognizant of the circumstances. It's not, I have never seen it where this is exactly what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. It's more of a push-pull to try to figure out a way forward. It's not, it just, you've got other cases when it's part of a disciplinary tribunal, or, you've got other provisions that you would use in those cases. There's other cases when it's an IEP situation or a 504. I mean, it's hard to make a generalization, but I have never seen it where it's a school versus parent kind of thing. That has other provisions in law. I don't, did someone want to help me out here? Or?
So, Chair, may I just follow up? So would we get to the same destination instead of saying an LEA determination that home instruction is necessary? What if we just change that to read an LEA determination that instruction at school is not possible? Like, I guess I'm asking, to me, that gets you to the same point, but one less with the heavy hand of you're going to do this rather than the school saying we can't do it. That's what I'm trying to find.
I'm not sure. Okay. I'll think about that, but there's another light, so.
And Chair, I'm not going to make a motion on this, so just for time, I'm happy to move on. I can discuss this offline. I'm not trying to shortchange anyone with the light on if they want to speak, but I know the sensitivity to the time. But it is something that we can look at later.
I think part of the issue is that we have historically called it homebound instruction. And so saying it's at home is a nod to homebound instruction. You call it hospital/homebound. So flipping that language around, I'm trying to think of a reason. I'm just trying to run it through the calculus in my head. I don't think there would be any problem with that, but I'm not sure it's necessary in any way, shape, or form.
I know he doesn't want to hear from me, so I'll speak to the other 14, if that's okay. When you put something that says if it's not possible to do it at the school, you're going to get into some potential legal issues. I mean, because who decides what's possible and what's not? I just see, and I'm not saying he said he's not making a motion here. I'm just speaking from what I've heard and from what I experienced. It'd be very difficult because sometimes the parents in school don't see eye to eye, and anything is possible. I will tell you that in my experience, and I get that it's limited, very limited, but LEAs are working with parents to do what is best. We want the kids in the schools, but anyway, just a small counter for everybody else. Yeah.
The reason that I think I prefer this language is simply for LEA clarity, because their policies are often called hospital/homebound. And then, so if you're using that provision, you're going into a specific part of their policies in order to go to the next step. By saying it's not possible to do at school, you actually are probably going more in the direction of disciplinary and going into that part of code rather than this part of rule. And I think that conflating the two would probably confuse a district and make it a little muddier than you need it to. Like, it is a collaborative process when it's not working for the student. And generally, it's in the cases that you've that we're talking about here, it's the student has been coming to school, going to school, and something has happened. An accident, a concussion, a traumatic experience, a something that interrupts that for a moment, and you need to do some other provision. It's not where you know, it's not that disciplinary side or a least restrictive environment type situation. It's this interruption because of an event, and it's temporary. So it's just, it's nuance, I think, a little bit, but that, like anything, you know, it might just be, what is that, when it's just conventional wisdom? So it might be totally fine to change it. I just think if I was reading it as a practitioner, changing it up would cause me more questions than answers.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Davis, to this, or are you chair? Or I don't know where your light's on for chair or to this. Okay.
I'm just went to a meeting at a school for my daughter and her two daughters. They're in this very situation, and I'd be happy to talk offline with anyone if they have questions about kind of what that process looks like and how it looks when you are a student of a school, but you're being taught at home, and it's very different from homeschooling. So I'd be happy to chat offline.
Okay, so the motion before us is that the board approve R277-419 pupil accounting draft 1 on second, or did we amend that one? We did. As amended, draft 1 as amended on second and final reading. Let's vote. Thank you. That passes unanimously. Board members, let me ask just briefly, we are on agenda item 4.4. Are there, I would like to close this out before lunch, but if we have discussion, I don't want to squash that, right? So let me just ask just quickly, and if there is, that's fine. Did we have questions on 607 or amendments on 607? Rule 607 and 484. Do we have any, or I'm asking if we should move forward and finish this out. We've got 2 more agenda items before we're finished with finance, or if we should break for lunch and come back. First person to speak up, I will listen to. Okay, we're going to finish. Chair Davis, over to you.
Yeah, just a quick background on this absentee and truism before I make these motions. We have a motion and 2 amendments. There was some language provided for in code. At Chair Hymas's request, I contacted the bill sponsor, Senator Fillmore, noticing that the provision for absence from a class was created in code, but not for a day. And he did give goodwill for the board to work on clarifying that, but there are some things that need to be clarified. So I'll start with the main motion and then have a very long amendment and then a short amendment. I move that the committee moves that the board approves R277-607 absenteeism and truancy prevention draft 1 on second and final reading.
The motion before the board that came out of committee is that the board approve R277-607 absenteeism and truancy prevention draft 1 on second and final reading. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you. We move that the board amend R277-607 absenteeism and truancy prevention by adding the following after line 89. R277-607-3-3-1 AI. Little I establishes a clear process, timeline, and standard for converting an unexcused absence into a truancy consistent with subsection 53G-6-201, parenthin 11, parenthin. Little I outlines the procedures and timelines for issuing a notice of compulsory education for students in grades 1 through 6, consistent with section 53G-6-202. Little IV outlines the I guess I could just be saying 2, 3, 4, or 5, but outlines, I'm reading as it's written, outlines the procedures and timelines for issuing a notice of truancy for students in grades 7 through 12, consistent with section 53G-6-203. And little v5 establishes that for students in grades 7 through 12, an LEA may enter an incident report of habitual truancy into the Utah Transcript and Record Exchange, UTREX, system after a student accumulates 20 truancies, provided the LEA has issued a notice of truancy in alignment with state law and LEA policy. That's the end.
Do we have a second?
I don't need to speak to it. I just
Okay, Member Lear?
put it out.
I just wondered what happened to the appeals process that was there.
Director Nui, or Dr. Nui.
On line 91, it seemed like you inserted a number of things, but you didn't mention moving down the appeals process. It's still there. Am I tracking where you were reading? It's just the next one in line is what you're saying. Cindy? Okay. Thank you. Great.
Okay. Oh, Member Carey, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a question. So, a student with excused absences, is there any circumstance where a student with an excused absence could be deemed truant?
Elise, you have a response there?
It's only unexcused absences that can be turned into a truancy.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions on this motion? Not seeing any. It's on the screen. I am not going to restate it. So we're going to vote. Can we just scroll down before we open voting? Allow members to process this for a second. Elise, are you driving? Can you put this, try to get the motion on the entire screen? There you go. Perfect. Thank you. I don't know if you.
Because I number 3 says provide an appeals process.
It'll all get renumbered.
Okay. Okay. So we've paused. We've got the entire motion on the screen. I'm going to reread it, and that'll give you another few seconds to process for any questions. If not, we can move to a vote. And just scroll down just a hair, Elise, to get that top in there. The motion before the board is that the board amend R277-607 absenteeism and truancy prevention by adding the following after line 89. R277-607, section 3, subsection 3, 1A, I. So double I establishes a clear process, timeline, and standard for converting an unexcused absence into a truancy consistent with subsection 53G-6-201, subsection or section 17. Triple I outlines the procedures and timelines for issuing a notice of compulsory education for students in grades 1 through 6, consistent with Section 53G-6-202. IV outlines the procedures and timelines for issuing a notice of truancy for students in grades 7 through 12, consistent with Section 53G-60 or -6-203. And V establishes that for students in grades 7 through 12, an LEA may enter an incidental report of habitual truancy into the Utah Transcript and Record Exchange (UTREX) system after a student accumulates 20 truancies, provided the LEA has issued a notice of truancy in alignment with state law and LEA policy. And seeing no additional lights, let's vote. That passes 12 in favor, 2 opposed. Those oppositions coming from Member Carey and Member Green. Back to you, Chair Davis.
This is the second amendment, that the committee amend or that the board amend R277-607 draft 1 by striking the current line 96 and replacing it with B, shall review the attendance policy in an open and public meeting every 5 years.
Okay, so the motion is that the board amend R277-607 draft 1 by striking the current line 96 and replacing it with B, shall review the attendance policy in an open and public meeting every 5 years. Do we have a second? Not okay. We got a second. Go ahead, Member Davis.
We're back to the main motion then.
Well, we have to vote on it, and
I mean, after we vote on this, I just don't need to speak anymore.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
She does not want to speak to that. It doesn't sound like. Member Carey, to this. Go ahead.
Chair, I just have a question. The motion says that we're replacing language on 9.6, and this just could be the version I'm looking at. I'm looking at draft 1, but I do not see any replacement language being struck for line 6. I see the new language there, and then I think the motion also called for that this would have to be in a public meeting, and I don't see that as part of this language. So I just want to make sure that what I'm looking at is the right draft. Doesn't it say that we're striking language and replacing it with this language? And if that's the case, where's the language being? Oh, that was easy. But no, where is that the language being struck and we're replacing it with shall? Okay. Thank you. Just because, understood. Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
I also have a motion. After this motion, I do have one more on this rule. Thank you.
Okay. So the motion then is that the board amend R277-607 draft 1 by striking the current line 96 and replacing it with B, shall review the attendance policy in an open and public meeting every 5 years. Let's vote. That passes unanimously. Over to you, Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. I have a motion, and it's to line 83. And the motion would just be at the end of that to add or section 53G-10-205. And then if I could speak to the motion.
Okay, so at the end of 83, add or 53G-10-205. Do we have a
Yes.
second?
Second.
Okay, back to you, Member Carey.
Thank you. Again, I just think that we need to include as a valid excuse religious belief and right of conscience pursuant to 53G-10-205. The way our rule reads is that although we reference it in line 67, lines 80 and 83 limit valid excuses to those things enumerated through lines 69 through 79. So, out of an abundance of caution, I think including it here would make it clear that this board wants religious belief and right of conscience protected and included in valid excuse. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to speak to this, and this kind of matches the current votes that or the previous votes that I've had. This law that we're referencing is in reference to curriculum and not attendance. That's why I voted against it last time. It just doesn't fit here. It's not that I am opposed. I'm sure this will come up in 2 years, but it's not that I oppose right of conscience, right? I know I'll hear about it, but that's why I would speak against the motion. Thank you. With that, let me restate the motion. It is simply to add or 53G-10-205 at the end of line 83. So let's go ahead and vote. That passes 8 in favor, 6 opposed. Those opposed being Member Reel, Member Booth, Member Bollinger, Member Hymas, Member Wood, and Member Lear. With that, that brings us back to our underlying motion, and that is that the board approve R277-607, absenteeism and truancy prevention, draft 1 as amended on second and final reading. Let's vote. And that passes 13 in favor, 1 opposed, and that opposition coming from Member Green. Back to you, Chair Davis.
Item 4.5, and I apologize. This is the one that we actually needed to contact the bill sponsor for. So Senator Fillmore, if you're out there listening, I apologize. I got the number wrong. It's this one. But the committee moves that the board approves R277-484 data standards draft 1 on second and final reading.
The motion before the board is that the board approve R277-484 data standards draft 1 on second and final reading. Seeing no lights, let's vote.
Did you have an amendment?
No. We did it inside the draft. You're welcome. Should be all of these.
And that passes unanimously. Chair Davis?
Item 4.6, legislative funding request information. We had just one, but not an official request to come to the board yet, but it was a request that staff prepare a funding request for the cost to fund self-contained students at a 2.5 WPU weighting. So that actually goes to what you were talking about earlier, Member Bollinger. And then item 4.7, the School Children's Trust quarterly report. Many of you may have been aware of this situation and have hopefully were able to listen to our discussion in Finance Committee where we tried to flesh this out a bit. The motion from the committee for the board is that the committee directs staff to bring back information and potential options regarding the process for establishing guardrails around the Education Stabilization Fund.
I'm showing no motion.
Oh, that's right, because we directed staff. I'm waiting for you. I don't. And that's it.
All right.
Painful.
The only thing between us and moving
Sorry.
forward. No, remember Earl, he'd been waiting. Go ahead.
That's exactly right. No, I just wanted to share because back we asked for that working group for the taxation and for, anyways, for the truth in taxation and also for the levies. And I appreciate the legislative individuals. Karen Peterson was one of those that did exactly what I've been asking for a number of years, that we've got to get ahead of the bid before the budget comes out, actually making the recommendations in a public meeting, not after the budgets come out, make those recommendations. It just seemed backwards, and I think it creates a lot of confusion. And so I'm just saying I'm appreciative of the legislature for, I don't know that they acted on our behalf, but it definitely we were thinking the same lines. So anyways, just thank you.
I appreciate that clarity. Thank you. Board members, that let me just give you a timeline where we are. We are going to get to lunch. We are on agenda item 5, and so we're going to skip over to just take lunch for 30 minutes, and then we'll come back and pick it up with law and licensing. Thank you.